Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. This is David with the Russian Literature Society, and today I would like to talk to you about what is a truly interesting topic, and one that, despite sounding like clickbait, is most certainly not. And that is going to be Dostoevsky's addressing of AI. Now, obviously, he didn't address AI in the sense that we know it today. However, during his time, he attended a few seances and would later write about them in his Diary of a Writer. He made some interesting points about, his personal opinion on the matter, and should these demons exist and should they be there, I guess, with the ability to provide information to people, what, they could inevitably do. I'll let you read the text for itself. I'll put a link in the description, but what I want to do is just read to you a snippet from his writings and then address it. So we're going to pick up somewhat in the middle here and then talk about it. So this is Dostoevsky's words here. All of a sudden, all knowledge would descend upon humankind, and, what is most important, altogether gratis, in the form of a gift. I ask you, what, in such an event, would happen to men? Oh, it goes without saying that at first they would all be seized with rapture. People would be ecstatically embracing one another. They would rush to study the discoveries, and this would take time. They would feel, so to speak, bestrewn with happiness, interred in material blessings. Perhaps they would be walking or flying in the air. They would be flying over immense distances, 10 times more quickly than they are now traveling on railroads. They would be extracting out of the earth fabulous harvests. Maybe they would be chemically creating organisms, and there would be 3 pounds of meat for every person, as our Russian socialists are wont to dream. Briefly, eat, drink, and be merry. Well, all philanthropists would exclaim in unison, now that man is provided for, only now is he going to reveal himself. There are no more material privations. There is no more of that degrading milieu which used to be the cause of all vices, and now man is going to become beautiful and righteous. There is no more incessant work for one's subsistence, and now all men will occupy themselves with lofty and profound thoughts, and with universal phenomena. Only now has sublime life begun. And what clever and good people perhaps would shout all this in unison, and possibly in the beginning they would sway all others, and they would all start vociferating in one common hymn. Who is equal to this beast? Praise to him who has brought us fire from heaven. But it is doubtful if these raptures would suffice even for one generation. People would suddenly realize that there is no more life for them, that there is no freedom of spirit, no will, no personality, that someone has stolen everything from them, that the human image has vanished and the bestial image of a slave, the cattle image, has come into being. With that difference, however, that the cattle do not know that they are cattle, whereas men would discover that they had become cattle, and mankind would begin rotting. People would become covered with sores and ulcers. They would start biting their tongues with pain, seeing that their lives had been taken away from them in exchange for bread, for stones turned into bread. Men would grasp the fact that there is no happiness in inaction, that idling thought must die, that it is not possible to love one's neighbor by sacrificing to him one's labor, that it is a nasty thing to be living gratuitously, and that happiness is not in happiness but in its pursuit. Tedium and anguish would ensue. Everything has been accomplished. There is nothing more to accomplish. Everything is known. There is nothing more to know. He continues the text, but I think it's very interesting what he points out in that, just as when someone becomes overwhelmingly rich, the pleasure of life kind of goes away. All the steak dinners, the taste of that Rothschild wine or whatever else they're enjoying, loses its luster, and you kind of realize that materialism or just having things doesn't really matter that much anymore. You see that with celebrities going crazy or whatever else. And it certainly, I think, applies to the, situation with AI as well, where if we lose too much of our own ability to do things, we aren't really gaining as much as we think we are. Now, technology obviously is a part of life, and the advancement of it is something that people have had to get used to really since time immemorial, obviously a lot more since the Industrial Revolution. But there is something a little unique about the situation we seem to be in now. And bear in mind, I am an amateur in all this to some extent when it comes to predicting stuff. I don't have a crystal ball. I just have thoughts and opinions based off whatever I happen to see and read. But the thought of books like the Brothers Karamazov being presumably created by AI, or having all of our needs met in such a way where we wouldn't even really need to read those, or so much, I guess, in the forms of art or just other things in the creative sphere being taken from people certainly is not a great thing. It seems nice for some of us that maybe we can have our logos designed by AI and not pay someone, or have this done and not have to pay someone, but eventually it will catch up. And I think Dostoevsky makes an interesting point, as in, it won't last more than one generation. So I don't really know what to say in terms of where things are going or what we should do with AI, but I think that the observation Dostoevsky has made here is very relevant to the current situation. Now, is AI akin to demons? I mean, I'll let you can answer that. I'm not going to say it is, but it's certainly interesting that the effect that they would have in his mind is in many ways similar to the effect that this could have. So I'd love to certainly hear your thoughts on the matter. I appreciate you listening. And like I said, I'll have a link for you to read this at length. And yes, Dostoevsky did attend seances. But yeah, so please, like I said, comment. Let me hear your thoughts. I'd be interested in having a discussion with this, and certainly look forward to it. Thank you.